Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the brave people who woke up to come attend our presentation. I'm Alessandro, and I'm a blockchain researcher at Coinbase.
Oh, and I'm Christian. I'm also a blockchain researcher.
And we are part of a crypto data foundation team in Coinbase that takes blockchain data and try to extrapolate insights from it. So to start, what is blockchain analytics? This is a bit how we see ourselves at work. So blockchain data is public, and there is a lot of insight that can be taken if someone can look through it and what is behind the surface. And today we're going to introduce a bit the concept like who can benefit from blockchain analytics and how can you use it. So to start, who should be using blockchain analytics? We think that everyone in the crypto space can get some insights from that. And in particular, if you are a protocol team or an NFT developer, you can see from the blockchain which kind of users are interacting with your protocols and what is the behavior that they are having. So, for example, if you have a DeFi protocol, you can see how people interact with your pools, how long do they stay in the pool, are they just coming to take the incentives that you are giving and then run away. So there are a lot of developments also on the tokenomics and on the structure of a protocol that you can get from on-chain data, and for NFTs is the same. The second kind of users can be investors, so there is a lot of alpha in the blockchain data that can be taken if you aim to just participate for investing purposes. So you can see which kind of users are interacting with certain protocols and tokens, and you can kind of see what the big whales are doing. In crypto, momentum is a big thing, so following what big players are doing has been really like a profitable solution in the past. And even if you are just an individual that is trying to play around with investing, I think there are many tools that can help you to get into this analytics and have an edge on other investors. The last years of our exchanges, where we from, and exchanges can use blockchain analytics for many different purposes. Can be compliance, so to avoid to receive funds that come from hacks or exploits, and we can try to collaborate with the victims to try to get the funds back. Or we can get a series of insights on products, see how the funds are moving on the blockchain. So how you can do that? There are three main solutions according to our experience. So you can use open source blockchain explorers, which are the easiest way. So they are public, they're free most of the times. Some of them are also really good and give you very good insights. But you are always kind of constrained of what they choose to show you. So, for example, time frames or displaying data into charts and download the data. They lack on another, most of the times, on another very important part on blockchain analytics, which is labels. So trying to label addresses or according to the behavior that they have, so you can see what these players are doing. So usually some blockchain explorers are very good, some others still can kind of just do really pure exploring, so you can paste transactions and see if the transaction are actually being confirmed on the blockchain. If you want to go a bit further, there is second type of thing, which you can subscribe to analytics tools. Most of these tools are actually really great. So there are some like Nansen AI or Dune Analytics that are open to individuals as well, and they allow you to query their data, download their data. You can access to their proprietary set of labels, which is, as I said, very important. But again, the constraint is always you can see what the currency that they support. So they don't have, usually it's hard to support from the day one a blockchain from scratch, having all the data and all the events and everything parsed and indexed properly. So that's another limitation. And if you want to go even further, there is the third option, which is, again, the one we do, which we run our own analytic infrastructure, and you have the maximum flexibility. And especially, we think for Solana, which lacks this kind of analytics at the moment, that could be a very powerful and interesting project to pursue. And we know that there is a lot of interest for blockchain data. So unfortunately, for Solana especially, it's not that easy because of the amount of data that Solana infrastructure can process. And Christian now will guide you through some of these difficulties.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. So there's a reason why major analytic tools have not onboarded Solana despite its popularity. These numbers are the reason why. There's a 2,500 transactions per second and 37 billion total transactions on the Solana network, which means the ledger size is about 9 terabytes, and it grows by 2 terabytes every year. This also means that validators don't store the full history, and so compared to Bitcoin or Ethereum, where the full history is stored on its nodes, it's much harder to sort of fetch all this data or find all this data in one spot. There's also different levels of problems that we have with ETLing in Solana data. Raw chain data, of course, is what I just mentioned, but also indexing and getting useful indices is also really hard. So for example, an index we might be interested in is like balance over time for an address. And due to total transaction size, it can be quite difficult to calculate these indices, very computationally expensive. Also, there's event calls on Solana, which means like parsing those event calls are also extra computation you'll need to do to get more insights beyond just like balance over time. So all these things combined together make Solana pretty difficult to onboard onto analytics tools. So now that you have a general understanding of what blockchain analytics is, and sort of some of the challenges we've faced with Solana and doing analytics on it, we thought we'd walk you a little bit through some of the insights we found. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Solana versus other layer ones. Then we're going to show a little bit about how users get onboarded onto Solana based on what we see. And then finally, we'll do a little bit of an overview of DeFi on Solana. So our first graph here, visualization, shows activity against other layer ones. So we have Solana, Ethereum, Cosmos, Celo, Avalanche, and Algo. And the metric we're measuring here is active addresses. So active addresses are addresses that made a transaction within a given time period. In this case, the time granularity is a day. So you can see that Ethereum, which is like a mint color, is about 750,000 active addresses for the past few months. And Solana has been sort of like linearly growing over the past few months. And what this means to me is like not that necessarily more users are there, but that there's a lot more activity on Solana, probably because transaction fees are much cheaper, and there's a much higher throughput in transactions. So this is a nice proxy we have for measuring how active or how used a blockchain currently is. The next thing we wanted to look at was total volume locked. So this is a way for us to see, specifically in this case, we wanted to look at how much total volume is locked into DeFi protocols on different layer ones. So here, TVL is the amount of cryptocurrency locked within DeFi protocols. And so the proportion here shows like it's a value of dollars. So we see that Ethereum starts off as the king of DeFi. And over time, we see different protocols end up grabbing more and more value overall. And to me, this indicates it's not a zero-sum game. You know, there's a lot of value to be had in the DeFi market. And even though Ethereum is no longer the only DeFi king, we see that Solana, Binance, and others are doing pretty well since March of this year. And then if we zoom in onto a couple of these, we see something pretty interesting. Solana, as you may know, is not EVM compatible, whereas these others are. And we find that here we also measure TVL, but instead of it being a proportion, we're measuring it in terms of dollars. And we see that with EVM-based DeFi protocols, there's a sort of initial spike as users get onboarded on very easily because of how traditional EVMs are. But since Solana was not like that, they sort of have their own ecosystem and their own app space. And so they grow more linearly, whereas the others sort of spike in the beginning and then sort of level off. And one comparison we like to make this, we liken this to, sort of like Apple having their own ecosystem, whereas every other protocol on here is kind of like Android in an open source environment system. And now Ali will talk a little bit about how users get onboarded onto Solana.
Thank you. So we started taking a look at activity on bridges. So now that there are many different blockchains that users can interact with, it's important to monitor bridges that allows you to move from one blockchain to another. And especially we wanted to see from Ethereum, which is basically where DeFi was born and where users usually got onboarded over the past year. We wanted to see how many people was trying to bridge into Solana. And you can see here a chart that displays unique depositors on the wormhole bridge. And we can see that August, and in particular September, there is a spike of users per day. And then this kind of activity is flattening over October and now at the beginning of November. And this is the same for the total value locked into the bridge. So the total value locked into the bridge is important because when you bridge from a blockchain to another, you lock the funds into the bridge, and the same amount of token is minted on the new blockchain. And we can see again that is a similar pattern as the unique depositor. So there is a spike in September, and then the total value locked is slowly decreasing. So we wanted to try to analyze why this is happening. So it's people going away from Solana, or maybe there is any kind of another type of onboarding that users do. And we tried to look at volumes that centralized exchanges have on Solana transactions. And as we can see, starting from September, there is a consistent activity growing into transactions that these exchanges do. And this can be used as a proxy as well of more users are directly buying, maybe on-ramping from fiat to Solana on exchanges and withdrawing and participating to the ecosystem. It's interesting to see how Bitfinex, ahead of the launch, we think that the spike in number of transactions is because they created a preset number of addresses that they assign then to their users. This is data that we take ourselves at Coinbase Analytics, and it is data that we see from the blockchain, so it might not represent the full pictures, of course, of the exchanges activity. That's what we could see. We can also see how many Solana were withdrawn from centralized exchanges over time. And here we can see that there was a spike in activity, let's say in September, but there is not really a consistent trend upwarding. And here the interesting thing is that it reveals that FTX, which is a very important participant on the Solana ecosystem, also in terms of centralized exchanges, plays a very important role, and Binance is following right after. So those are the most active exchanges that we could find operating with Solana. Now we wanted to, so now that we've talked about how users get onboarded, we wanted to talk also a bit about what's happening in DeFi on Solana. So we wanted to try to see which are the trends, and of course we can see here that among the major DeFi protocols that we evaluated, there is a consistent trend upwarding on the total value locked. The amount is in dollars, so of course is also the growth is also influenced by the price of the assets underlying growing. But we can definitely see that while Radium and Serum started earlier this year, then with the newcomers, it is not, as Christian said before, like a zero-sum game where DeFi protocols steal users from each other, but is always, we've seen that there is an organic growth. Like the more protocols, the more people get onboarded. And here we can see a bit of a trend. So like which are the most consistent over time, or usually, as we said, protocols use incentives to bootstrap their network and try to get users to use the platform as quick as possible at the beginning. So it's important for us here to notice if there is an organic growth in the total value locked, or if there are like spikes in use that can be a sign of users just getting in and farming all the tokens that they can with the incentives at the beginning, and then move out and go to new farms. So this for us is interesting data that can show to protocols which kind of behaviors and features of a protocol can help them to organically gain user traction rather than having a lot of bootstrap at the beginning, but that not being able to retain the users. And this is something that is not like a Solana only related. This is definitely also, we've seen it extensively in the past on Ethereum as well. And there is a statistic, I think, from Nansen AI that they say that around 70% of the users that go into a pool to farm tokens at the beginning of a launch of a protocol, they leave within 24 hours. So that's definitely something that helped the protocols to grow, but I think that the expected behavior is to then stay and try to grow together. This is another chart that show us which market share this protocol have. And it's very interesting for us that 5 of these protocols are DEXs, and they kind of share the same, almost the same market share. So there is not really a couple of protocols that own a lot of the volume, like there could be in Ethereum with Uniswap and SushiSwap, but there is a kind of uniformity around here, which is very, very interesting to see, and how if it will be able to play out also more in the future. Yeah, so all this data is being taken from us and assembled and kind of elaborated from mostly open source intelligence, open source website. So only the labels that we applied to centralized exchange are proprietary of our product. So that's a very, what we wanted to demonstrate, that a lot of data is out there and it's just ready to be consumed, and can be very valuable for to take data-driven decisions on this space. This is all for us. We wanted to leave some time for potential questions, or if there are none, we're gonna hang out here a bit later as well. So if you wanna come talk to us, thank you, everybody. Thanks.
If anyone has questions, yeah, I got you. I'm right here.
Hi there, thank you. So you mentioned how there's, at some point, effectively the data trail stops in terms of analytics. So looking forward into the future, if the validators aren't really storing that data, what does that look like from an analytics perspective? How do you hypothesize what has happened before that?
That's a good question. I think that it's something that we are exploring at the moment ourselves, and we are trying to see what's the best solution. A solution could be to just save some checkpoints in time ourselves as well on our database, and try to then rerun, backfill any time that we want to apply new heuristics or new algorithms on the data set that we own on our proprietary database. So I think that if you run your own analytics, it's important to have the whole history of the blockchain eventually. So that's a kind of separate from the proof of history that you mentioned.
Any other questions? I can come around with the mic if anybody's got anything. Yep.
Hi, thank you so much for the overview. I'm not sure whether it's like the right moment to ask this question, but I was wondering whether you could share more on the kind of tools that you use to explore the blockchain and get to these conclusions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. So a lot of this data that we have taken, we have quoted the sources are, we have a website that is named DeFi Llama, which is very good for anything DeFi related and has a good coverage also for Solana. So you can see what's the total value locked on each of these protocols, how they are growing over time. And you have the possibility also to download data from them for their API. So even if you want to do your own analysis, you can take the data locally or on your computer, and then you can elaborate and draw charts on what you want. Other sources that we have taken from Dune Analytics, which is doesn't support Solana at the moment, but it was the data that we have taken to see flows from Ethereum to Solana through bridges, and that's a subscription kind of tool. So you can use it for free as well on the platform, and you can query with SQL the database, but then you cannot download the data unless you subscribe. Yeah, and the last one was another website named ChainCrunch, which we found very useful, having some data on general network statistics and protocols on the number of transaction tokens that are moving also. That's an interesting topic because we recently launched USDC on Solana, and it was interesting to see how it started to be a very important role on the ecosystem. So stable coins are important to grow a system. So some of these are all open, and so.
Yeah, and I think one other tool, we didn't use it in this presentation, but Nansen AI I really like for analytics. It's really cool. They have like computer-generated labels, so you can find like whales or like other things that might be interesting to you. And I've definitely like used it to just poke around and see what's interesting on Ethereum.
Other questions out here? They will be around.
Behind there.
Okay.
And as we said, like there is not much data at the moment on Solana. So I think, again, it could be a good, interesting opportunity to develop.
Have you done any research into the distribution of like wallet sizes to drive all that volume? Because one of the criticisms I hear about Solana is, it's held by like a small number of whales who like control the market. But have you seen that like retail surge driving a lot of that volume, or is that something you've looked into?
Yeah, we tried, and some of the data that we can take, we haven't got an actual answer on that, but some aspects that you can use as a proxy for it are, again, bridges. So see the size of transactions that get bridged. So if a few addresses send large amounts on the other blockchain, we can assume is mostly very concentrated and whales-driven, or even withdrawals from exchanges. It's like if we see a withdrawal of a few $100 or even few thousands, we can assume it's mostly retail audience that is withdrawing and trying to participate on the ecosystem. But yeah, we haven't gotten a solution there. But that's a very interesting thing. We should have
we're
definitely
looking into
displayed.
it. Yeah.
All right, last one, if someone's got one.
When you had a graph about the new accounts on Solana, the growth of it, is it only signers or is it every account in a transaction?
It's number of distinct addresses that are transacting on a given day. And that includes not only accounts, but also programs. So that can also be not only, it's generally used as a proxy for users that are using the network, but is, yes, signers, sorry. So yeah, it's, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much, guys. That was
you.
super interesting. I love looking at blockchain data. Thanks so much.
Thank you.